My mind has been captivated by the subject that I'm going to begin to talk about tonight. San Antonio is known for its hospitality industry. And so hospitality in and of itself is not, well, I guess I could say uniquely Christian, but there's a sense in which it is uniquely Christian. There's obviously money and reputation connected to hospitality in the world, or there wouldn't be so much of it. San Antonio probably wouldn't be filled with it like it is if there wasn't that connected with it. And so it is a big part of who we or who they as a city are. I'm an Elmendorfian, but San Antonio is a hospitality city. And people praise San Antonio that way. Such a hospitable city. There's restaurants and there's lodging and they take good care of you and they're so nice and they're so, all of these accolades that are thrown out upon the city. And I don't despise that, by the way. I don't look down upon that. I don't say I wish it were otherwise. I don't think that's a bad thing. For followers of Christ, hospitality is not a business. It is to be a way of life. And I really wanted us to think about this together. I don't know that I may launch into what you call sometimes preacher mode, preacher voice, but I'm really wanting to talk our way through this. I want you to think through it. I want it to sink in. I don't think it's going to sink in just listening to a message. Maybe a couple of messages will help, so I thought we'll take a couple of weeks just meditating on this concept of hospitality from the Scriptures. It really is part of our character that should distinguish us in the world, hospitality. So there really ought to be some measure of difference between what we as Christians call hospitality and the hospitality industry. Now, there are some things that are similar. There are some crossovers. They touch, they meet, but there is a difference. And so I hope over the next couple of Sunday nights to work through some thoughts from the Scriptures to help bring some clarity to what it means and how we can work out this aspect of our Christian life. I believe there are some great examples of hospitality at Community Baptist Church, but I believe we can do better. And when I say that, do not misunderstand what I'm saying. There is certainly nothing wrong with pointing out example of those who have modeled very well a life of hospitality. I don't think that I'm going to be doing that with contemporaries, that is, those at Community, including myself. I don't want to talk about me. Well, this is what I do. And if that may creep in there somewhere if I throw out an example of something that recently happened, but I'm not doing that in order for you to say, oh, that's what he did, that's what I need to do. There's a lot of that kind of stuff, and if you do some research on this subject, you'll find plenty of folks that'll tell you how to do it, how they're doing it. And so you kind of, you feel like, well, I need to model them. But the Apostle Paul really didn't seem to have a problem naming names, and I think here it is in the context, at least to some degree, of hospitality when he says in 1 Corinthians 16:15, I beseech you, brethren, you know the house of Stephanos, that it's the first fruits of Achaia, and that they have addicted themselves to the ministry of the saints. Hospitality is more than that, but it's not less than that. Ministry of the saints. And he says that you submit yourselves unto such and to everyone that helpeth with us and laboreth. So he holds out this family that they obviously knew as an example, I think, to follow. I think that's why he is holding them up. I'm saying that to say, I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, so-and-so really does a good job of modeling this for us. I don't think there's a problem with that. I just probably will refrain from doing that. And if I change my mind on that, you'll know it because you'll hear a name. And but there isn't only one way. There isn't just one way to demonstrate hospitality. There are some specifics that we're going to see, but the outworking is going to vary due to diverse circumstances. We're all at different places. We all have different circumstances in our lives. We're not all working with the same tools. We're not all working with the same capabilities. So we need to be careful about comparing ourselves among ourselves in this area of hospitality, as with any area, really, in the outworking of the Christian life. So the goal of these messages is not to say, do what I do, or to guilt trip anyone into doing more. This is not a contest. It's not, all right, let's ratchet up the performance, folks. You're slacking. That's not what this is about. I really, really have increasingly despised that mentality. That has been a part of my life in my past, and I don't like it. I don't think it's godly. It leads to just all kinds of Phariseeism, and we're not interested in that. At least we shouldn't be interested in that. What I'm aiming for is a better understanding and cultivating an hospitable spirit among us. I think there is a spirit of hospitality at Community Baptist Church, but I'm wanting to cultivate that more in us. Let me read 5 scriptures to you here. These are the scriptures that actually use the word hospitality, not only the English translation, but the Greek word. There are 2 words that are translated hospitality, and these are the 5 verses. The one that at least I've listed as the text, Romans 12:13, distributing to the necessity of saints, given to hospitality, which is a noun there. Given to hospitality. It's not a verb, it's a noun. Given to this condition called hospitality. Okay, whatever it is, this is what we're to be. And if you're being it, you're going to do it. Okay? Hebrews 13:2. Be not forgetful to entertain strangers. That's the word that's translated hospitality in other places. Entertain strangers. For thereby some have entertained angels unaware. So in this verse you have entertaining strangers, which is 2 words to translate one word, one Greek word. And then you have entertained angels, which is 2 words translated 2 English words translating 2 Greek words. The word entertained there in reference to angels is to be a host. And it's interesting, if you look up the word entertained in the Webster 1828 dictionary, this is the first definition. To receive into the house and treat with hospitality, either at the table only or with lodging also. That's what the word entertain means, and that's why the translators of the King James translated the first one, hospitality, entertain strangers, because that fits the understanding of hospitality. You're entertaining, you're receiving into your house and treating with hospitality either at the table only or with lodging also. So that, you're hearing that is a central idea. 1 Timothy 3 and verse 2. A bishop then must be blameless, the husband of one wife, vigilant, sober, of good behavior, given to hospitality. Here it's an adjective. It's describing the bishop, the elder. And I say the elder, for Titus 1 verse 8 is describing elders, and the same word is used, although it's translated a little differently there. In 1 Timothy 3:2, it's given to hospitality, and in Titus 1 and verse 8, but a lover of hospitality. Actually, lover of hospitality is a translation of that one Greek word that's translated hospitality in 1 Timothy 3 and verse 2. A lover of hospitality. A lover of good men, sober, just, holy, temperate. So 2 of the verses deal with me. So it's really important that I get this, right? Because it's a qualification to be. I actually heard a recording of a pastor who was boasting of the fact that you should not expect him to invite you, church members, into my home, and you shouldn't expect me if I don't show up at the hospital, he was boasting of these things. I've got better things to do. I've got more on my plate than to be given to hospitality. That just seemed strange to hear a pastor saying this. And he was proud of it. 1 Peter 4 and verse 9, use hospitality, the translation of that one Greek word, one to another without grudging. And that's interesting, the way that, we'll get back to that. We're going back to some of the concepts in these verses. I'm just giving you, those are the 5 verses that specifically use the word that we translate hospitality. Now, what's the meaning of hospitality? What is it? Negatively, what it is not. First of all, it is not gender specific. This is not a woman thing primarily. Now we think that way, don't we? Hospitality, if you're not married, you can't be expected to be hospitable, right? I mean, men can't be expected to be hospitable, can we? And then you go back and read 2 of the 5 uses of hospitable are toward a man, a bishop, an elder, given to hospitality. Who entertained angels unawares? Yeah, a man and a woman. My point is not gender specific. Don't think this is a woman thing only. Should I say a woman thing primarily? Don't think only women when it comes to this thing of hospitality. It is not simply housing and feeding in your home. Though this is a very practical outworking of hospitality, and I think it's understood in the Word that our home is a base, a use, a place in which this is worked out. But not only that. It is not showcasing your decorative or cooking skills. This is not hospitality. Now that's the hospitality industry. Showcasing, decoration, cooking skills. The decor is huge when it comes to the world's concept of hospitality, not for the Christian. You see, hospitality is not about me. It's not about the reviews that I get. It's not about the oohs and ahs over the food that I just put out or the style of my home, or it's not so that people go away talking about me and what I just provided. That's not hospitality. Although, part of being a keeper at home, which is a qualification for a woman, right, who is married, to be a keeper at home, part of that surely includes providing a comfortable environment, and of course men can assist in this as well, but a comfortable environment. You really I don't feel comfortable if I go into a home that is crawling. I mean, I've been into homes, I've visited homes where I wanted to lift my feet because mice were shooting back and forth, and roaches, and didn't really want to sit on the couch because I didn't know what I was sitting on. I have visited homes like that as a pastor, not members of the church, but I've visited homes like that. Some of you are Rolodexing. Whoa, when was he in my house? And that's uncomfortable. And so we obviously want to, it's a practical thing to keep your home in such a way where people, where the environment is welcoming. That is part of hospitality. But it's not showcasing your decorative or cooking skills. It's not entertaining only those with whom you are comfortable. Not entertaining only those with whom you are comfortable. Now, that may be fellowship, and that's important. But it's not necessarily hospitality. That's an important point when it comes to hospitality. One more negative here. It is especially not entertaining those who will be able to reciprocate or that you expect to reciprocate. And on this note, I want to turn back to Luke chapter 14. Somebody said, and I didn't search it out to see if it was true, but somebody said in the Gospel of Luke, the book of Luke, Jesus is either going to or coming from a home and often a table. Interesting. In Luke chapter 14, it's one of these cases. And he's been invited, and he goes to a Pharisee's house. And this is what he said. I don't necessarily recommend that you saying this if you're invited to someone's home like this, but Jesus could do that because of who he was. But it's very instructive to us. I mean, verse 12, then said he also to him that bade him, that invited him, when you make a dinner, I can just picture Jesus looking around at the guest list. He looking around at those who are invited to the dinner that he was invited to, and this is when he says it. When you make a dinner or a supper, call not thy friends, nor thy brethren, nor thy kinsmen, nor thy rich neighbors, lest they also bid thee again, and recompense be made unto thee. But when thou makest a feast, call the poor, the maimed, the lame, the blind. Now don't get overly spiritual here. You know, we like to let ourselves off the hook sometimes by overly spiritualizing things. And there's no practical value and application of what's being said. When you make a feast, check your guest list. Do you have anybody that qualifies? Somebody had to wheel in with a wheelchair. Somebody had to help to the door because they couldn't see their way clearly. Somebody that was on oxygen. Somebody that you know will never be able to in any way repay you for what you are doing. It wouldn't even be on your mind because you know it's not possible for them to. In other words, your inviting them is not about you. Hospitality here. And thou shalt be blessed. This is the incredible thing. It almost comes around to be about us. When your attitude is what it ought to be. Thou shalt be blessed. For they can't recompense you. For thou shalt be recompensed at the resurrection of the just. It kind of fits that whole idea of praying in secret, giving in secret. Your Father which sees in secret will reward you openly. You want your reward? You want your congratulations now? You ain't getting it then. Kind of concept. Why are you doing what you're doing? We're talking about hospitality here. You see that we're going deeper than just the act here. It's the spirit behind the act. So those are a few thoughts as to what hospitality is not. Positively, it is manifesting a welcoming, giving spirit that is open to meeting the needs of others, especially those with whom you are not familiar. Not only with those with whom you're not familiar, but especially with those with whom you're not familiar or are not well-known friends to you. In other words, strangers. Well, preacher, what does the word strangers mean? You tell me. You got a hunch as to what that means, don't you? It's somebody that's not on your well-known list. Somebody that's not on your familiar list. In fact, it could be translated foreigner, a passerby, a stranger. The Greek word that's translated hospitality literally means a lover of strangers. You break the word, it's a combination of two words, a lover of or being fond of something, philos, for those who have any idea about Greek. Phileo, you've heard that one probably. Being fond of. And the other one is strangers. The two words are brought together in this one Greek word. A lover, fond of, strangers. I can tell you right now, I'm not going to get as far as I probably thought I would tonight, because I will confess to you that this one hit me. Fond of strangers. That's not natural to me. I'm not naturally a lover of strangers. You remember a couple of ladies, we were out holding signs, a couple of ladies came and sold strawberry shortcake. Actually, that was pretty good. I ate mine, most of it. I asked Joe, do you think I should eat this? Anyway, see, that's the way I think. But it crossed my mind after I was leaving, why didn't I invite them for supper? If my spirit, this is why I'm talking about a spirit here. This isn't a checklist thing. Oh, I did that. Yeah, 3 months ago I did that. That's not a spirit there. That's a to-do list. But if we have the spirit of hospitality, lover of strangers, fond of, but that's risky. I'm jumping ahead here a little bit, but yeah, it is risky. When you entertain strangers, you don't know who you're entertaining. But you might be entertaining angels. But you might not. You don't know. But what does this include? What do strangers include? It includes caring for those traveling in ministry. Let's go over to 3 John. The Bible has a lot to say about this subject, although the word is only used 5 times. The concept is found throughout. 3 John. And these are recorded for us. I mean, this is God's Word. God put these instances in His Word for us to glean from, to model our lives after. Beloved, verse 5, 3 John, verse 5, Beloved, thou doest faithfully whatsoever thou doest to the brethren and to strangers. Brethren, and to strangers. In this case, I think the strangers are those who are brethren who are passing through. Perhaps missionaries, what we would consider missionaries or traveling evangelists, or some, people who are in our area. which have borne witness of thy charity before the church. So they have spoken of that charity. And really, isn't this what hospitality is? It's charity. It's love, manifestation of love. Whom if thou bring forward on their journey after a godly sort, thou shalt do well, because that for his name's sake they went forth, taking nothing of the Gentiles. We therefore ought to receive such, that we might be fellow helpers to the truth. So here, this idea of hospitality fits into this. We recently housed some folks on the property here who were evangelists, and that was a form of hospitality. It fits what you're seeing here in 3 John 5 through 8. Or visitors who come our way from other church context, or Romans 16, verses 1 and 2, at least a visitor. I think that Phoebe may have been more than that. She may have been actually moving to the area. But at least she was there on business. It says, I commend unto you Phoebe, our sister, which is a servant of the church, which is at Cenchrea, that you receive her in the Lord, as becometh saints, and that you assist her in whatsoever business she hath need of you, for she hath been a succorer of many, and of myself also. This is that ministering to the saints, the concept of hospitality. It includes caring for those traveling in ministry, or in this case on business, whatever. We're not told what the business was, but they're in our area. They need to know that they are welcome with us. This includes caring for specific needs of saints. 1 Timothy chapter 5. These are expressions of hospitality. 1 Timothy chapter 5 and verse 10, well reported of, this is the widow, who is a widow indeed, well reported of for good works, if she have brought up children, if she have lodged strangers. There's the hospitality. If she has washed the saints' feet, hospitality. If she have relieved the afflicted. All of these are aspects of caring for, being a lover of, giving of ourselves to strangers. If she have diligently followed every good work. Go over to Matthew chapter 25. Now, tonight I want you to be struck with how much the Scriptures have to say about this matter in various contexts. Matthew 25. You remember, do you think that how you have responded to this issue of being hospitable, do you think that's going to have any bearing in the day of judgment for you? Well, let's read Matthew 25. This really is, in one sense, expressing how significant this is. Verse 34, then shall the king say to them on his right hand, come, you blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was a hungered, and you gave me meat. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. Naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came unto me. You notice that there's not a word here about preaching the gospel. Now, I don't think we should conclude that that's not a fellowship in the gospel is not included here. But that's not the point of emphasis. Then shall the righteous answer him, saying, Lord, when saw we thee an hungered and fed thee, or thirsty and gave thee drink? When saw we thee a stranger and took thee in, or naked and clothed thee? Or when saw we thee sick or in prison and came unto thee? And the king shall answer and say unto them, verily I say unto you, inasmuch as you have done it unto one of the least of these my brethren, you've done it unto me. So he's specifically speaking of how we have treated those who are brethren of the Lord Jesus Christ, and who would be our brethren. And then shall he say also unto them on the left hand, Depart from me, ye cursed, into everlasting fire, prepared for the devil and his angels. Well, why are you saying that, Lord? Why are you saying that to them? I was hungered, and you gave me no meat. I was thirsty, and you gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and you took me not in. Hospitality. Naked, and you clothed me not. Sick and in prison, and you visited me not. Then shall they also answer him, saying, Lord, when saw we thee an hungered, or athirst, or a stranger, or naked, or sick, or in prison, and did not minister unto thee? Then shall he answer them, saying, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as you did it not unto one of the least of these, you did it not to me. Again, you can harm yourself by overly spiritualizing. If you don't love those whom you see, if you don't take in, if you can't be hospitable, is your house a castle? With the bridge drawn? Or is it a place where folks are welcomed? Is that important? Now, there's a sense in which I think we could say our house is our castle. It is a protective environment, and we should protect that environment, but not protect from people. It should be an environment. We'll emphasize some more things about that later, but we're just seeing this is significant. This is not well, I'm not gifted in this area. No. I won't do. You're standing in the day of judgment. Well, Lord, I would have taken them in, but that wasn't my gift. Really. Wasn't your gift. So what was your gift? You see, this does require something of us. It really does. And I'm holding off on getting to some of those things till a little later, maybe not tonight, but so we're saying positively, what is it? So we're just kind of getting the picture here, the overall picture. And I want you to think about it. I do want you to, I've had to think about it in my preparations. I want you to. So this includes caring for needy ones whose spiritual condition is unknown. Not only does it include brethren who clearly ought to be welcome, but even those that we're not sure of. We don't know. They're strangers. Those with whom we come into contact with, but they're unknown to us. Hebrews 13:2, been quoted earlier. We read it earlier. Be not forgetful to entertain strangers. Did Abraham know who those three men standing that were approaching? Did he know who they were when they were approaching? You go read the account. He did not know who they were. He found out, but he found out only after Sarah, kill the fatted calf. Oh, Abe, again? We had plans for tonight, Abe. It essentially, positively, listen to this, it essentially involves a spirit of giving. Fundamentally, at the very core, a giving. It's love in action. And who is the perfect example? Jesus Christ. Now you think about that one. Jesus is the perfect example of all things good, including hospitality. But wait a minute. He had no certain dwelling place. He didn't have a place to lay His head. How was He going to be hospitable? He responded to strangers as He traveled from city to city. Have mercy on me. Shut up. No. Zacchaeus, make haste and come down, for today I must abide in your house. Jesus was hospitable. That is, he had a spirit of giving, and he had nowhere to lay his head, but he found out ways to work it out, even going to somebody else's house. He had compassion on the multitudes who had physical needs. Matthew 15. In verse 29, Jesus departed from thence and came nigh unto the Sea of Galilee, and went up into a mountain and sat down there. And great multitudes came to Him, having with them those that were lame and blind and dumb, maimed, and many others, and cast them down at Jesus' feet, and He healed them. Insomuch, Jesus' house was the canopy of the sky. I mean, that's where He did most of His work. He did do some in houses, we know. Insomuch that the multitude wondered when they saw the dumb to speak, and the maimed to behold, the lame to walk, and the blind to see, and they glorified the God of Israel. Then Jesus called His disciples unto Him, and He said, I have compassion on the multitude. This is Jesus. This is perfection of hospitality. He had compassion on the multitude because they continue with me now 3 days and have nothing to eat. He doesn't chide them for not preparing better, for not planning better. He had compassion on them. And I will not send them away fasting, lest they faint in the way. What a heart. What compassion. We're talking about hospitality. He sat with others at meals, which we've seen already, and He engaged with them in different ways at different times, different circumstances. He did not isolate Himself. Are you hearing me? He did not isolate Himself and insulate Himself. That's not hospitality. That's not a spirit of hospitality. He did spend time alone. He did get away. But He was accessible. Did y'all hear that with John Newton this morning? How accessible he was? It's kind of like slapping me up a little bit there when I heard what all he did. And I didn't hear that he complained. Talk about how tired he was. Not enough hours in a day. How am I going to get my own stuff done? I'll guarantee as a man he thought some of those things. We just didn't hear about that. I mean, you know those thoughts ran through his mind. People in need sought Jesus out. He came to seek and to save that which was lost. Brethren, this is the spirit of hospitality. a willingness to engage strangers for their good, both temporally and spiritually. I've emphasized the temporal side because I think we understand the spiritual side. We emphasize that a lot. But the temporal side, which I would suggest is a gateway to making Christ truly known in the gospel as we work it out by the manifestation of love. To people who have not first earned our trust, why would you invite a stranger into your home for anything until you have vetted them, until you've called the FBI, until you've made sure that it's safe? You know, we kind of live our lives today as if in Bible times it wasn't as dangerous as it is now. Truth be told, I haven't done all the historical research, but truth be told, it was probably more dangerous for travel then than it is now. Now, I'm not throwing caution to the wind. I'm not saying there ought not be care and so forth, reasonableness, discernment. Yes, we need all of that. But I think sometimes we use those words and those right concepts to rule out the degree of hospitality that we ought to be demonstrating. Well, from the observations that we've seen so far, and I think I'll just conclude here, this is what comes to my mind. Every believer is capable of demonstrating hospitality. Every single believer is capable. Some are going to deal with limitations and some are going to be more or less restricted. I thought about it. Believe me, I thought about all the things that I could possibly say. And I thought about the membership of Community Baptist Church, and I thought about who's going to be hearing it and how they're going to be applying it and how it's going to affect different individuals. I get it that we're all different. But this Spirit must be in all of us, without exception. We all can find reason not to be hospitable, can't we? I know I can. But we really have no choice if we're going to be faithful disciples of Christ in this present world. Given to hospitality. Isn't that what Romans 12:13 says? Given to hospitality. In other words, this is describing the characteristic that is to be you and me. Given to hospitality. Not primarily planned fellowships. The second and fourth Sunday of the month. That's enough hospitality. That's fellowship. That's our planned fellowship times. There's not talking about socialization among those we know and with whom we're comfortable. Is there anything wrong with that? We need that. No, there's nothing wrong with that. No, what we're talking about goes beyond that. This is an aspect of loving your neighbor as yourself. Loving your neighbor as yourself. I'm going to pick it up there next time. But let me give you a couple of quotes here. When we practice hospitality, here's what happens. We experience the refreshing joy of becoming conduits of God's hospitality rather than being self-decaying cul-de-sacs. Read that again. When we practice hospitality, you see, we're not talking about something that's God intends to be a burden. We're talking about something that God intends to be a blessing. But you'll never know the blessing unless you engage. And the Spirit must be there. We're going to flesh that out a little bit more. Therefore, when we practice hospitality, here's what happens. We experience the refreshing joy of becoming conduits of God's hospitality rather than being self-decaying cul-de-sacs. The joy of receiving God's hospitality decays and dies if it doesn't flourish in our own hospitality to others. Don't stop the flow. God has been hospitable to you. He sought you out. You were a stranger. He took you in. He brought you into His house. He loves you. Now, are you going to receive that and not let it flow through you to someone else? That's the cul-de-sac. That's the stifling. That was John Piper I was quoting there, but that's what he's talking about. I don't want that. And you know what? Some of the problems that we may deal with may be tracked to this very thing. We've become a cesspool, stagnated. The love, the mercy of God is stopped with us, and it's not flowing through to others like God intended. That's not healthy for a child of God. That's not healthy for a church. So, this isn't beat up on ourselves time. This is look at ourselves and say, oh wow, there's something here. Will you pray? Will you pray with me? I have been asking God. There are 3 names that I know, neighbors that I know, 3 names. I said I wasn't going to get personal tonight, but I'm asking God, what do I do? I'm serious. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to work this out completely. I just simply, some of you may know better than I do. So I'm not standing up here with all the answers, but I am asking, God, I want this Spirit, and I want this Spirit to be alive in me, and I want it to be alive in you. And I'm pretty convinced that this is one of the ways in which we will see ourselves being used evangelistically too, as we open up ourselves and open up our lives and our homes even to strangers. Amen. Well, let's close in prayer and let's talk about these things, okay? I'm not wanting the things I'm saying to be, okay, end of sermon, end of thoughts. Let's move on to another subject now. I'm wanting this to be something that is circulated among us, a discussion about it, and so that we can help one another work through these things and grow. Okay, let's stand together. Be dismissed in prayer.